Okay, so what I would do is just work through these elements one thing at a time, and work through them in terms of their order of importance. Um,
Yeah.
so I like to think of it like a mixing hierarchy. So start with the elements that need to be the most kind of in your face, and then work backwards down to the things that are less important, less important. So
Yeah.
you were talking about, having these big kind of full drums and this big kind of in your face, like powerful drum thing. So straight away, I'm thinking start with the drums, right?
Yeah.
So let's just work through your percussion parts one at a time and see what we've got. This is just a kind of crash thing, I'm guessing, like an impact.
Yeah.
Okay, so first thing that I would think about is panning some of these elements, because at the moment, as you say, they're all coming straight down the center at you, and
Yeah.
particularly these little kind of additional, they're like supplementary percussion parts. Giving them some width is gonna open those out. So let's just have a listen to this. Right.
Ah, I did not know you could do that. You just clicked stereo panning.
Yeah. So anything that's a stereo track, you want
Yeah,
it as a balance knob, then it basically just balances the left and right channels.
that's what I've been reading about this last week, and I thought you had to because they've got a directional mixer plugin on Logic as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I thought you had to use. Okay, so is the stereo pan essentially the same like the directional mixer, or is it slightly different?
Basically, yeah, basically the same. It's just that you can stick it straight on your pan pot, and then it will
Oh,
pan the
that's
whole
awesome.
stereo sound rather than acting as a balance knob. Um,
Okay.
so
Is there anything wrong with panning stereo signals like this?
no,
No, because I've read so many things that were saying, "Oh, don't do it, and you should sum it to mono and then pan it."
I mean, yeah. Look, you can. The thing with stereo, any stereo sound source, is that something with stereo information is going to inevitably end up clogging up your stereo field, and might well end up giving you some phase cancellation issues when your track gets summed to mono.
Yeah.
So I would always ask the question, does it need to be a stereo sound? And if it doesn't, make it a mono sound. So like
Yeah.
these shakers, for example, do they need to be stereo? I mean, you tell me.
Um, I guess not really. No.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't have them in stereo. I would make them mono.
Okay.
So I'd change all of my plugins in my strip here to mono. That have it, and make that a mono channel, and then I can just
Okay.
same with the egg.
So, would you normally do this with a lot of like smaller percussion sounds?
Totally, yeah. Something
Yeah.
with a place in the stereo field that I'm going to say, right, I'm going to put that there.
Yeah.
I'll absolutely do this. Make it mono and then put it in a specific location. So these two parts, to me, they're working together, so they're going to offset. So I would put one somewhere left and one somewhere right.
Yeah.
And actually, because they're doing a very similar thing, you can have them fairly wide, and then you want to kind of try and level match them so that you haven't got an unbalanced kind of left and right. So the shaker is about 7 dB less than the egg. So let's put.
Have I done it correct? Where, because my previous projects have been an absolute car crash when I look at the mixer with the faders all over the place, some of them being like right down at the bottom. Mm-hmm. Is it best to try and put these gain plugins on to try and keep your faders around that 0 mark?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Yeah, I mean, it's the way that I would encourage people to work. So that's totally cool in my eyes.
All right, cool.
So some shakers left and right. That's where I would start. Then you've got this tambourine. Kind of just
again,
on. So
I guess that could be in mono as well, right?
Could certainly be, yeah. Or you might decide that what you want to do is just kind of narrow it rather than going completely mono. So you could use something like Ozone's Imager.
Yeah.
And just narrowing even like by 50%.
Yeah.
So that rather than having, this kind of slight spread, it's not a really wide sound, because really wide sounds, you'd have this spray coming out kind of wide.
Yeah.
But, there's nothing wrong with narrowing it a bit, just to keep it a bit tighter. And then what else we got? So these two parts to me are primed for offsetting a bit. I would probably keep these in stereo, because it sounds like that they've got multiple instruments and sounds within the actual patch. So I'd keep the stereo tracks, but I would offset these a bit to give that groove a bit of width.
Yeah.
And level up.
When you're using the stereo panic on that, are the numbers the same as what it would be for mono panning, or is it slightly different?
Yeah, exactly the same. So it'll go 64 and 63. So it's always that 0 to 127 kind of the MIDI values.
Okay.
So yeah, same numbers. It's just that one is doing a stereo pan and one's doing a balance, which is effectively what you got on a mono.
Yeah.
So to me, that groove is nicer. It's got some width. It's got a bit of spread.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's put the other kit back in here. Okay. So this first kit part, this is kind of the main drums, yeah?
Yes, yeah. I don't know why it's got 80s kit on that. That was another preset I had, and it seems to have kept the name on the kit.
Who knows? Anyway, no issue. What I would probably do, I think, is start off with some parallel compression, I think. Do you know anything about parallel compression?
I was reading about it the other day, but it would be good to have an explanation on it.
Cool. So any processing happens in one of two ways. It either happens in series, which is what happens on your channel strips here, where you do one process followed by another process followed by another process.
Yeah.
In the same way as in a TV series, you watch episode 1, 2, 3, then 4 in order. When you process in parallel, it means that you're processing simultaneously rather than one after the other.
Okay.
So what I've done here is to set up this new aux send. So it's going to bus 12 here, which is bus 12.
Right.
And I've created that as a channel strip in the project here so that I can move it with my drums.
Okay. How would I, because on the one I have on mine, I have the a summing stack, so I've got all of the individual kit pieces going into that drum. Yeah, a bit like that basically, but for the kit as well.
Yeah, so I mean, exactly the same thing. You can just set up. I mean, that aux send, that bus, you can put inside the summing stack, and then it's in the summing stack.
Okay.
So you can put that wherever you like.
But it's just got to be the sends have got to be going to that, right?
Yeah. So you'll set up the send from the channel. So I'm sending from the main drums channel at the moment. I'm not actually sending any signal yet, but
Okay.
So on there, I'll then place a compressor. Now it doesn't matter, use whatever compressor you like. So let's just stick with the Logic.
That is quite a collection of compressors you've got there.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a plug-in horde.
I thought I was bad, but that's quite impressive.
A bit silly. I use about 3 of them,
Yeah.
Okay, so here's our compressor. Now, probably what I will do is use the Studio VCA, which is just a nice. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to use the classic VCA,
Okay.
which models it's a DBX 160 compressor, which is used a lot on drum parallel processing, amongst other things. So what I am going to do is dial in about 4:1 ratio, roughly. And then I'm going to start sending this level into our parallel compression and looking for a nice healthy amount of gain reduction, because you need to think that this isn't compressing the whole drum signal. This is going to be compressing what I'm sending to it.
Right. Okay.
And we're then blending that back in with the original signal. So. So what it's doing is basically squashing all of those drums. So on its own, it's not going to sound very nice. It's really heavily squashed, but when you blend it back in with the original drums, it's going to give you that sustain and that kind of length out of the drums that you haven't got just on its own.
This is parallel compression because it's in conjunction with the track that's already.
It's in parallel because I'm not processing the original signal. The original signal is untouched, but I'm sending a copy of that signal to this new button and processing a copy. So I've got both things running simultaneously, side by side.
Okay, so when would be a key sort of scenario when you would want to use it to get more?
I mean, people use it in all sorts of circumstances, but the primary one is when they want to try and make the dynamic of something more consistent without it feeling really compressed.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Which is quite human and expressive, and particularly with those kind of chanty vocals, and you're not going to process it like an EDM track where you just slam the hell out of everything with a compressor.
Yeah.
You want it to feel human and musical still, but I advise to get to try and get a bit more consistency out of the dynamic, and what it'll do is to give you the length and the body from the sounds whilst not losing the kind of attack and the punch from the front end.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
This distortion function is saturation, effectively different levels of saturation within the and for some weird reason the soft distortion level is actually the most aggressive.
Okay.
So I love it. I think it sounds great.
Sometimes I on most of my on my drum buses, I tend to just put this classic VCA and don't do anything with anything else other than just put that distortion on one of those 3 settings. Just it sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good emulation. Out of the 6 models that you've got here, it's one of the more successful. The Studio VCA is great, which is like the Focusrite Red 3. The Studio FET is not great. That's like 1176 blackface. This is like an SSL G bus compressor, which is pretty good. And this is like a 1176 Silverface, which is also pretty good. The sort of LA2A style Opto is so-so, but 3 of these models, certainly the classic VCA, the SSL, the 1176, in fact 4, and the Studio VCA, they're all pretty good. The 1176 blackface and the LA2A not so much, in my opinion. Cool. Okay, so let's just hear what we've done to these drums. So what I would want to do is then make sure that I've got all of my drums coming out of one route. So rather than have everything just going to my stereo out, I would create another level of control. So I'd change the stereo out to a new bus.
This is where I start to get really confused when there's so many buses.
So what I've got now here is those drums going to bus 13, which is my drum bus, as well as the drum, the parallel compression, which is also going to bus 13. Okay. So if I just listen to bus 13, then if I mute that bus, it's muting those things because they're coming out of that.
So they're not going to the master. So those 2 go to bus 13. Bus 13 goes to your out master. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that to me sounds great, but what I can then do is try and kind of level match before and after the parallel. So before the parallel, I'm at 11.2 minus 11.2 with I'd have added in about 4 dB. So
got it.
You can gain stage at that point so that you're not increasing your overall loudness, you're just getting that kind of compression.
Yeah, I find that sometimes when I'm using other buses, like with reverb tails and things like that, I find it very hard to get the levels right, and when sort of the sound I've sent to a bus comes in, it suddenly goes up or down or something. But that, doing it like that is a really useful way.
I think it's kind of tidy. I think it's kind of helpful. I mean, but then what you can do is you can then blend the other elements into that parallel compression as well. So where you've got these other 5 elements here, you can set up the same parallel compression send on them, and then you can blend in different amounts of all of those sends to them. And what I like to do when I'm dialing in these kind of
they would then also come out from that drum, that final drum bus.
So they will when I change this output. So you've got them coming out of the track stack. So I'm going to change that track stack to your main drums channel now.
Yeah.
So now going out of 13 here, which is then going to your stereo.
Yeah. Okay. So now I've got that drums one and the percussion all coming out of one channel.
Exactly. Yep. You got it.
Okay. After they've gone through. So the percussion is now also. Okay. So bus 12 is the parallel.
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to that and then going. Okay.
Now, what I really like when I'm dialing in parallel compression and doing things in this way is to use this sends on faders option.
Right.
So on faders means that rather than using this little send knob here, which is kind of fiddly and not very easy to dial in a precise amount.
Yeah.
Turn this on here, then it will change all of your faders to a send, and you can choose which send you want on the faders from the drop down. So I want to put bus 12, our drum parallel send, onto the faders.
Yeah.
And then I've got those sends, just the bus 12 sends on these yellow faders that I can then dial in.
Right. Okay.
It's kind of a cool thing.